Cookie, do you love me? Are you riding? Say you'll never ever leave me. And welcome to Fancy Ramen episode 78, I hope. Today is August 5th, 2018. I am one of your hosts, Scott.
I'm Cookie.
And I'm confused.
And Neil doesn't get the reference, and that's okay.
What was that singing to?
Oh, I'm just up in my feelings today. Had a rough week. That's another reference for you, Neil.
That is correct.
There's a small little 25 track album called, or maybe it's 24 tracks, called Scorpion, released by this new up and coming Degrassi actor, Drake. Yeah. And I think he recently released his video for In My Feelings, and people have been doing the In My Feelings challenge and accidentally running themselves over with their cars as they try to ghost ride the whip to the song.
Oh, yes. Okay. I have seen those videos, but I see them on Reddit, but I never have my audio up on my phone, so I don't know what they're singing to.
That's okay. They're way better than the actual music video, in my opinion. But I also have seen a bit of graffiti around town that has been people writing over other bits of graffiti with "Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding?" And so it's been in the back of my mind all week.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah,
And sad
it's about
for you?
the only. Yeah, it's a mix of both, but it's about the only culturally relevant thing I've done this whole week. So I had to get it out early before I hand the reins back over to Neil.
Culturally relevant?
Yeah.
I mean, what else has been occupying your week? Work?
What else have I done this week?
Yeah.
Nothing. I have done nothing of note this week. I have had my most unlucky week in a very long time. And so between working a ton of hours at work and dealing with some unfortunate circumstances with my car and other things,
Ooh, okay.
I am happy to be in front of this camera and at a little bit better space than I was 72 hours to, I don't know what a 5-day week is in 24 hours.
You know,
I don't feel like guessing.
I just want to point out.
And then it's 122. So what? 136? 136 hours?
I feel compelled to point out that on the grand scale, aside from my car getting stolen once, I feel like we have an equal number of car problems, and my car is probably worth $1,000 to $2,000.
Yeah, and my car's supposed to be 7 or 8 times that.
Oof.
And my car's brand new. My
Yeah,
windshield cracked over the course of the week, though.
How?
Oh, God.
We don't know because it was in the garage when it happened, and the garage door was down.
So, all right,
And it was the
you
middle
do
of the night.
live like the most luxurious, white privileged lifestyle out of all of us.
Out of the three of us, yeah.
Yeah. And so I have to ask, what do you have your car's internal temperature or thermostat set to? Like 60?
No,
55? You wear like a sweater when you drive around in the summer?
I don't
God,
think-
that sounds awful. Do you see what I'm wearing right now?
I don't think that it was thermal expansion that took out Cookie's windshield.
But nah, I think it was like Monday. Got done with work, mowed the lawn, did some things. Lizzie came home, windshield was fine. Tuesday morning, pulling out of the garage to go to work, window is cracked. Like there's a big ass crack that's doing a crazy thing up to like almost halfway across the windshield now.
Is that covered by a warranty of some sort? Do you have Apple Care for it? Holy crap, my joke is destroyed by my poor pronunciation.
So I took it to Subaru the other day. They said they have to take a bunch of pictures to see if they can get Subaru to replace it for free under defect, since I've only had the car for a couple of weeks and there are no impact points. Just random crack in car window.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sympathies to you. I had to replace all 4 tires on my vehicle.
Don't you usually replace all 4 at the same time? Why would you
Well,
not?
we've had a lot of construction going on, and I had a vicious enough issue with a nail getting in my tires, and my other ones being worn down enough that they were like, well, we can replace one and fuck up your alignment potentially, or you can go for 4 and we can get this done right. And I don't know enough about cars to like really like call them out on that if that's not true. But,
so don't ever worry about your alignment, because if they realign your car and you hit a pothole, your alignment's fucked anyway.
That's fair.
That's your car drifting whenever you're not holding the whenever you're not holding the steering wheel.
Yeah, but I like never hold the wheel.
Oh, there you go.
He uses his knees to drive most of the time, so he can continue playing Pokemon Go while he's driving.
I don't even do that. I lean. Just like the same way I drive in my racing games. I just kind of lean where I want to go, and I use my body weight to indicate what's next. Well, that's good.
Doesn't your alignment also determine like where your steering wheel is to go straight as well?
I think it also impacts the wear on the tires too, though, which is probably the biggest thing. Like if you don't have great alignment, then you're wearing down on one or 2 tires portion, as opposed to all 4 evenly.
I've heard that depending on the alignment issue, that can be a myth, though, too.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was going to note, like, you can technically, I think, replace 2 tires at a time if you really want to cheap out on it. But, like, if your tires were really as worn down as they claim, which, I mean, you know, they were exaggerating, you know.
They were factory tires that were past 30,000 miles. And so I thought, well...
Did you do the penny test?
I don't know what the penny test is. Do I check to see if there's a penny in my
you just
tire?
you check the tread of your tire by the, like, how deep your penny goes into it, or how deep a coin goes into it.
And you want to drown Abraham?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Or you can throw the penny at the tire, and if the penny bounces off at the same velocity at which it contacted the tire with, you know it's still good.
Okay.
There you go. That also works. I think that'd be more of a checking the tire pressure than anything else, but you know, it's what else.
Yeah.
I feel like replacing your tires, especially in Montana, is probably a good thing, though, when you factor in the winters that you guys, I assume, face.
I have tires that also are specifically built for winter. So I have winter tires that I put on for the snowy part of the year. Yeah, it is true though. It's good to have traction. There are a lot of those white crosses near where turns on mountain passes happen at, or just turns in general, because there's almost never just a small ditch. It's like more or less you're in the valley, or you are flanked on one side by a mountain and not surrounded by anything on the other side.
Which is maybe the biggest point as to why I would never move or drive in Montana.
Yeah, it's not so bad. I don't know. I have been surprised at how I used to think that Omaha drivers were pretty bad. I used to think that just like drivers in the Midwest in general were bad, because there were a couple of rules that they didn't follow that I thought were so easy, like left-hand passing lane on the highway and things like that. But I'll take all of it back for how bad some of the drivers are out here, and how I don't know, they seem to be fearless when it comes to how they drive on these roads. It also explains a lot of the white crosses.
Too soon, Scott.
They're not dated, so who's to say?
Speaking of white crosses, I saw Sir Mix-a-Lot last night.
No way.
And luchador wrestling. I did skip Chihuahua racing, though, because the luchador wrestling was going on.
Where was this at?
Apparently there's this thing called Taco Fest, and Sir Mix-a-Lot was headlining, and they had apparently luchadors, breakdancers, and Chihuahua racing. We did see the practice heats for the Chihuahua racing, and then all of a sudden, as soon as the Chihuahua racing was starting, it was like, oh shit, luchadors are entering the ring. Yeah, I'd rather go see that. Fuck dogs running around.
Yeah, unless the dogs were donning the masks and wrestling, I can see how the luchadors would be more exciting.
Did you just say you would watch dog fighting?
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Specifically, if those dogs were a specific breed of Pokemon.
Yeah.
And there was a tournament going on, and the nerdiest of nerds are playing against each other, then yeah, I'd watch dogfighting at that point.
You're not going to hear any complaints to me. I think Pokemon in and of itself kind of breeds bad ethics.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I got so into gambling too, and taking people's money whenever I win at something against them.
It's really fascinating when you consider that I don't think there is a way to generate money outside of Pokemon duels or battles, trader battles in what is that? Pokemon Red and Blue?
No, you can win beauty pageants now.
In Red and Blue, though, so there's a fixed amount of income you can actually get in that game, I think.
Unless you gamble.
Is there a casino there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Team Rocket runs the casino in that one. That's where you fight Giovanni the first time, I think.
I recall that is one of the levels, but I don't remember actually being able to use anything in there.
Oh, you can. That's how you get Porygon. Is you have to win an obscene amount of money to get Porygon for the prize winnings. I'm an expert on Pokemon gambling. That's all I'm gonna say.
The Pokemon. Is there some sort of wait? No, I guess Team Rocket is basically the illegal slavery ring in the Pokemon universe. Right?
There's some sort of ring in the Pokemon universe, I'm sure. The rest of what you said, I have no idea.
Yeah, you cut out again.
So I was saying like the Pokemon slavery trafficking ring, that's actually headed up by Team Rocket, right?
Yes.
That makes it really hard to root or have any empathy for James and Jesse.
What do they do with all the Pokemon they get?
Probably sell them, right?
I don't think they catch. I think part of the reason that they're even villains in this children's show, though, is that they're also like kind of hapless at what they do. Like, do they ever?
They're not
actually...
hapless. Ash is just really, really good at foiling their plans.
Yeah, but they don't like. Whenever they steal others, they're always either thwarted or they keep them for themselves, and then they raise them as trainers, which is really no different from what anyone else is doing.
But let's ask the question here that, let's say we have a person that desires to murder everyone. Like, he just wants to murder people. Now, because he's unsuccessful, does that mean he's a morally okay or just person because he's really bad at murdering people?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
No,
yeah. Like, at this point, it doesn't matter what he says. He's not actually hurting anybody, so...
Yeah, it's like...
As a matter of fact, how bad at murdering people is he? Is he so bad at murdering people he's just giving away money? He's building elaborate traps in hopes that the house will fall on a person, but he builds the best house ever?
He's developed socialized healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's a morally... I'll say that's a morally good person there. Wants to murder everybody, can't murder anything. Matter of fact, he's saving lives. Shit.
And I'm starting to think about, too, like, I forget how... exactly how, like, stings work in a lot of ways, but isn't it that the police have to arrest you, like, in the middle of an act or as you're about to commit it? Like, there's not too many opportunities in which they actually have any sort of, I guess, jurisdiction to stop you before you've performed some sort of crime or initiated the performance of it.
But I think you can actually go about planning something and still be convicted of like conspiracy.
Yeah. You make a good point there.
I also don't know if any of us were honestly arguing that he's a good guy in that case. You're hypothetical, like, shitty murderer.
It's just the worst assassin ever.
Yeah.
Like I guess like Jesse and James from Team Rocket probably have redeeming qualities that they showcase as the series goes on, but it's like at its core, they're slavery trafficking, whatever criminals.
Or maybe they're just freeing all the Pokemon from the slaveness that they are in via the friendship.
Maybe Dr. Robotnik is actually trying to save all of the animals that he kidnaps or captures because there's like some sort of airborne illness, and Sonic and his friends are actually exposing them to the elements like the dying Earth.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
What have you been up to, Neil?
I did my first Instant Pot cooking, and it kind of turned out not as well as I was hoping. Threw in some riblets, and I think the Instant Pot cooker cooks too fast or too well, because as I'm trying to pull the ribs out from the Instant Pot, they are just falling apart. Like the meat is falling off of the bones so quickly that there's no way for me to take out the ribs and sauce them, because the bones continue to just keep falling off. And to make matters worse, a lot of the bones on riblets or rib tips are on the small side. So I was like, well, shit, it's hard to fish out all of these bones at this point. The bright side of all of this, though, is that because they cook so well and so efficiently, the bones were actually deteriorating when you put any force into them. So aside from the big bones, which separated pretty quickly and easily, if you accidentally chewed into a small bone, you probably wouldn't be able to tell because the bone was literally falling apart. So
it went better than expected at that point.
Yeah, kind of. It's like I was planning on just bombing this facility, but instead I accidentally nuked it. So instead of doing like barbecue ribs, I ended up doing pulled pork, which I don't think the riblets really maintain the moisture as well as like a shoulder cut or anything, but that's an ongoing process there. And then aside from that, I don't think I have anything outside of video games to talk about. Cookie, did you have anything you wanted to share before we talked about video games?
So Sir Mix-a-Lot can rap pretty hard. I'm going to be setting up an encounter for my D&D campaign that I'm running where there's going to be some zombies reenacting the Tale as Old as Time song from Beauty and the Beast, and it's going to be beautiful. As long as my the Tabaxi in our group doesn't like pass a DC 18 stealth check, then we get Tale as Old as Time sung by zombies. I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, work, video games.
That's good. At least you got to play some. What'd you get into then?
This weekend's the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 beta is going on right now. And as your resident, I just play the normal people games. I've enjoyed what I've played. There's a new game mode called Control where each team gets, it's either 20 or 30 lives between the 4-4 or 6v6 or whatever it is.
And the whole group shares them, or?
Mm-hmm. Whole group shares them. You have to capture 2 points. And both points need to be captured within, it's like 3 or 4 minutes. But if you're capturing a point, the timer stops. So it's a nice, like, thing between go in, guns blazing, and sit back and be tactical with it.
It's the Overwatch overtime timer function, essentially. Like, as long as you are completing the objective, the time is frozen in your favor.
Exactly. And then like as soon as one team runs out of lives, it becomes Rainbow Six Siege all of a sudden for them. And so the other team runs out of lives, and you're like, okay, sweet, there's only like 3 operators left. Let's do this.
That's awesome. I like that. That's like a combination of the ticket system too from Battlefield. Except
it makes more sense because we know exactly how many tickets are left, and there aren't like 70,000 people using all the tickets, and you're not sure which motherfucker's like ruining the game for your team.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So Been playing that for the past couple of days. Got on Octopath Traveler every once in a while throughout the week.
Does Call of Duty Black Ops still? Do they have some of those like legacy game modes from the first Black Ops? Your second, like Sticks and Stones and gun game, still in there, or one in the chamber? Or did they mix it up?
World at War, World War II does have gun game. Usually, after a little while, they'll do the Sticks and Stones. They'll bring back those legacy things after the game's been out for a couple of months, and then like rotate the playlists. Because for some reason, they just don't include these at the beginning. So yeah, we'll do Prop Hunt and not zombies. What's it called? Infected in World War II. But as of right now, with Black Ops 4. Not 100% sure. Played some Hardpoint, played some Domination. I like the maps. I like the way the operators kind of work. Their specializations are a little more... It's not as, like, quick with everything. So the gameplay is super fast, but, like, to get... One character has a 9-bang flashbang system where it takes a little bit of time before you can actually toss that out. And then they've got their specialties, and then the healing's not overpowered at all. It's like, hey, if you live and survive a gunfight, you deserve to just heal immediately. So you should heal immediately. That's what I got. So far, excited about excited for the game when it comes out. Get to try out. It's hopefully by the next beta they'll let us play Blackout, but until then. We'll just
What's Blackout? Is that
Fortnite?
Okay.
Or I guess PUBG, since I don't think they're gonna have us building anything.
Gotcha.
So PUBG.
It's just the Battle Royale version.
Yeah. So what have you been playing, Scott?
I played a grand total of about 45 minutes of video games last night.
Ooh.
Put in 45 minutes of Doom 2016 because I needed to finish my laundry before I went to bed. And that is unfortunately all that I've done. And as wonderful of a game as Doom is, it is very difficult to get back into I never completed the game, but I'm on probably one of the last chapters or I guess levels for the game. I have most every piece of equipment. My character is pretty much fully upgraded in most of the capacities, but I forgot how to play the game, so I just got the shit kicked out of me for 45 minutes. Like, I couldn't swap between weapons efficiently. I kept hitting R, which is to actually change your alternate weapon, like its secondary ability, as opposed to reload, because you don't have to reload in Doom. You don't have to reload in Doom, which is I love that game. I love the shooter designs to it because it's so much more active and hectic than any other shooter that I've ever played. But because of that, it's sometimes hard for me to pick up on the type of flow state you have to get into to be successful at it. Because Doom is a action-paced, movement-based shooter, high adrenaline and intensity. And so me plinking around and using cover and trying to play that way makes it an incredibly kind of difficult and not that fun experience. And so I spent the whole 45 minutes trying to break the habit so I can go back to it maybe later this week and play some more and finally finish that game. Otherwise, I didn't get to touch anything. Octopath Traveler is still where it's at for me. And I actually don't know if I have any other games that I really have in progress right now. I played Hearts of Iron 4 with Matt this morning. And we had a very close to historical game of Axis versus Allies playing as the UK. And Matt was originally France until France got swept in a historically accurate way. And then we came back in as the UK and United States to wipe out Germany, which had already defeated the Russians, while Japan was democratic and going through a civil war with its original empire system of government. and then Italy just didn't do anything. So after we finished it, we were like, all right, let's just sweep the Italians and call it good. And Benito Mussolini spent the entire game preparing for the like full weight of the world coming down on the northern Italian borders, and we almost lost to the single boot that is Italy as the combined world powers of the United States, United Kingdom, France, and a puppet state, Germany. But that's it. Like, that's all I've gotten to enjoy.
Have you guys basically stopped playing Europa Universalis 4? Or 3, or
until
whatever
the next patch comes out. I'll play more. It's essentially we're like hopping between these grand strategy games for whenever the next most recent patch comes out. But I won't play Crusader Kings. So
why not? Is it just too clunky for you, or?
Yeah, I just feel really hesitant about playing it. So it's between Hearts of Iron and EU for the most part. And the EU mods are great. Like, I've been enjoying those. Or not the EU mods, the Hearts of Iron 4 mods are great. So we've been messing around with mods for those games too, which has been really fun. Much better than the Civilization mods that I've played, which is, another grand strategy game that I feel like a lot of people like to apply mods to customize the experience. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Nothing exciting this time.
That's fine. Well, since the two of you brought it up in some capacity, I haven't had like a whole lot of time to play games, but Octopath Traveler has been kind of proving itself to be like a nice casual game to pick up for a chapter at a time. The one thing that I think I've been forgetting to mention, at least on air or on podcast, is that I love the dancer's ability, bewildering
grace.
Yeah, which essentially gives you random effects per number of boost points you use. And one of the effects is that you can get multipliers on your experience and on your JP gains. So I've personally found that like this game doesn't really seem, at least as far as I've gotten, the game really doesn't require much grinding as long as you take a dancer with you and are using that through your normal battles. So like I don't think I've had to once stop in an area and just grind for the next dungeon or the next boss or anything. I also really like how there seem to be quite a few different bosses that require specific sorts of strategies or seem to benefit off of like a certain tactic for it. But that's about all I'll say with that. The stories, I have a feeling most of the stories are going to be pretty, I think the word I want to say is vanilla or plain, but it's nice because I don't think I've played a game or an RPG in particular that kind of lets itself go cliche, if you will. Like there's no whole, like by being classically cliche, it's kind of unique nowadays. Like it's not a story about someone transporting to another world and having their cell phone with them, or transporting to another world and opening a diner, or like not throwing shade on those
anime I'm
things.
watching right now. I'm actually watching Transferred into a Video Game World.
Yeah, it's. I guess I'm just saying that like, by being traditional in its stories and at times predictable, it has been kind of like it's been a treat to play this game just because it's like I don't have to worry about some meta crazy twist coming up. I kind of have a feeling I know what's going on across all of the storylines at this point, but part of that's just been enjoyable and pleasant to play. But I did pick up a different game, and another game that you can kind of play casually. And I think I actually picked it up last week, but I neglected to talk about it, and it's called 911 Operator. And it is
good. I was hoping it wasn't 9/11 Operator.
Yep.
You have to witness the events, and that's it. It's kind of like the JFK assassination simulator. No, 911 operator. It's exactly what it is. You play as an operator to the emergency response system, whatever, etc. It's extremely, shall I say, thin, or the experience is not complex at all. It's very simple. You occasionally get calls that you have to answer and respond to, and the strategy is fairly simple. I mean, I'm not trying to simplify the job of an actual 911 operator, but in this game, it's basically like, okay, figure out where the call is coming from, figure out the threat, assess the threat level, and respond accordingly. And then you also have to more or less direct all of your emergency responders, be it police, ambulance, or firefighters throughout your city. And that's kind of a cool thing. It uses your location to determine like the closest map built on that area, or it might even generate it automatically. So because it recognizes I was from Omaha, my map is actually Omaha. And it also
Nice.
it also locates all using that. I'm assuming like Google Maps or Google information, all of the police stations, hospitals, and fire stations. So it's like supposed to be like a somewhat realistic reflection of your city. Now that said, like it's kind of the small moments that make you or at least make me enjoy the game. Like getting the call from someone that has accidentally lopped off their leg in a saw as at a wood mill, and having to like try and talk the guy to a point where he like tourniquets himself. It's also just these weird calls you'll get you'll get a caller that pretends that they're ordering a pizza, and you have to, find a way to get the information you need from them to determine like what's actually going on and send the correct responders and so forth. But again, it gets pretty simple because you start to get repeats of calls, and ultimately you realize at some point you use the available funds you get by performing well to just get more responders, more vehicles, and the game kind of plateaus out to where you have enough police officers and ambulances and fire trucks that nothing is ever a problem. Kind of feels like YouTube bait, if that makes sense. Let's play bait. Because as soon as I looked up 911 operator to confirm what its name was, all I see are just YouTubers and Let's Players constantly. But I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting little experience. I kind of like these games built around like simulating or providing some sort of like look into other professions. Like I think there was like not referring to Surgeon Simulator, but I think in the past year we had talked about a game that was trying to open up like a public perception into what being a doctor at a hospital would be like, and also adding like moral decisions and so forth into that. And there is also a game I saw recently that was about being a what is the right term, but working at a morgue and having to like
mortician.
Yes, thank you. Which also looked pretty interesting, and I've been thinking about picking up. But aside from that, nothing all that new. League of Legends has its one for all mode going on with its pool party event, so there's freebies and shit to get if you do any of those missions. But that's about it. Now, since we hadn't discussed a specific topic or bit of news to focus on this week, did you guys have anything in mind that is relevant today?
See, you gotta tell me to prepare for these things.
Hey, the docket's there for a reason, and if not, it's not a big deal. I really hadn't been keeping up with news in a way And even going over it this morning, I didn't feel like there was anything too crazy or too noteworthy to really talk about.
Hey, a slow news week is sometimes that's a boon.
It's a blessing. I forgot. I've been playing. I went back to No Man's Sky
Oh yeah,
recently.
I saw some pictures that players were taking of their gameplay, and I was wondering what was up, if there was something new released for it. Did they update or have a new patch?
Yes. So it's finally. You remember when No Man's Sky had the trailer and it was the Jurassic Park theme that would play, and then it was like the actual gameplay and it was the Jurassic Park theme but on a kazoo?
Oh yeah, that's
So
one of
now-
my girlfriend's sister's favorite videos.
Yeah. So now it looks more like the No Man's Sky we were supposed to get.
Okay,
So there's now third person mode, huge graphics overhaul, so the game's actually pretty. You can choose different races, and with the different races that you choose, you actually get the opportunity to, like, the field of view changes. Like if you're a Gect, which is the short race of the world, so they're the hobbits. Like your
it lowers your camera.
mode, yeah, it lowers your camera. The crafting system is more robust now, as in like, so you get like oh god, I forgot what, like, you get some kind of a metal. You can then make that metal ionized, so you can actually like put it through a filtration system. What's the thing called? The science term? Not filtration.
What are you
Some kind of
trying?
processing. Either way, you can process elements to turn them into different elements. It looks pretty. You can now have up to like drop in, drop out co-op for 4 people to like just. So my brother, he's playing it as well. He took a warp gate, not a warp gate, a wormhole. So he was like super far away from where I was, but as soon as I like jumped in, I landed on I was on the planet he was on.
Gotcha.
Because I have a ship and everything, and he's got his own freighter and a frigate as well. So there's like, you can own multiple ships to do different kind of jobs for you. So big update on that. Looks pretty. Brought me back. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a level of, by them introducing all of these things that we were technically promised in some way,
yeah.
the ease of being able to find and locate other players, do you think that kind of takes away from the mystique of what No Man's Sky was supposed to be?
So I'm not sure how it would work. Like, so you can join other people's games to where there's 4 of you flying on the same server in the same instance, basically. It's where you guys can warp to a different system but come back to each other and like group up and things. When it comes to like, say, hey, I'm just going to play on my own solo for a little bit, I still don't think you'll ever be able to find anybody.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible then, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to the mystique or what we were originally promised, one thing that we did want was the ability to say, hey, I know we're playing and we're somewhere in this galaxy together. I do want to meet up with you. So now it just makes that a little bit easier to become like, with freighters, you can now become a space pirate if you want, or a space Viking, as I like to be known as. But so no, I don't think it really gets rid of that mystique. It just gives us more freedom in how we want our No Man's Sky to be, rather than what the game originally was, which was just walk, scan. There's a big mystery at the end of the solar system, and then that just turned out to be another solar system.
Yeah.
Or universe, I guess.
No Man's Sky, I feel like, especially seeing all of these additional like patches and gameplay additions and follow-throughs on some previously promised content, it's one of those things where I wonder how much better it would have sold if they had just like really pushed back the development time. There are some things that I think they implemented that came primarily out of player feedback, right? So there are elements that they still would have probably patched or repaired post-launch. But let's say they pushed their launch date. This came out in 2016, I believe, as well. Let's say they pushed their launch date by a year and a half, 2 years, and they decided to wait until about this period in time. I wonder how much more lucrative their initial release would have been. Like, they still could have drummed up hype over that period of time, maybe even waited to show their hand a little bit longer. But ultimately, I just feel like because this game was such a flop at its start, I'm curious as to if it actually picks up that many players that it lost out on due to the initial release being such a rocky start.
I have no earthly idea if the game itself will pick up new players, but for the people who actually initially bought it, since a lot of them bought it, digitally where you can't just return a game, then this at least brings them back to say, hey, I already have it. Might as well download it, see what all the hubbub's about, since this is the big update.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing about a lot more people coming back to it because I already had it. So what's the worst that can happen? I spent a few minutes downloading the game. I access it for a second, be like, okay, because when they added the multiplayer patch to it, where you could just be a floating
just
orb,
an orb, yeah.
there was no real graphics overhaul, and it wasn't enough to bring me back.
Yeah.
Now the game's pretty enough, and it's as simple as I log in, I choose play with another person. Everyone who's playing on my friends list pops up into a little map, and I can just click on a friend's name. So I'll just click on my brother's name, load in, bam, I'm on a planet, at least in his general vicinity, if not on his planet already.
Yeah, and it is nice, I guess, in that case that for the players who initially bought the game were disappointed and didn't continue with it, they're really following through on making it a worthwhile experience, or at least somewhat entertaining. It's a lot easier to, eat $60 of disappointment a year and a half ago when you can start to put time and entertainment into it down the line versus just having to say that was a bum purchase and there's nothing to be done about it.
Yeah, so it really... Oh, yep.
I also wanted to chip into that. I think the mystique behind or around No Man's Sky initially is what made it such a big topic from the onset, right? But if people really knew what the game was going to be, which essentially is just an exploration survival game, similar to Starbound, really, I don't think as many people would have been that excited about the game. So
no, I could see that.
So I'm guessing that even if they fulfill all of their promises to what the game is going to be or was going to be in the past, I think it's probably at a healthier point now because they're not going to have nearly as many people buy onto it that the promise looked to be before its release.
Makes sense. And I guess if you do want to talk news, this is a little bit old, July 25th, so I would have mentioned it last week if I had been on the podcast, about the No Man's Sky Next update. Have you guys heard of GOG.com?
Good old games, right?
Maybe.
Okay.
So they offer DRM-free versions of games, and there is a DRM-free version of No Man's Sky that unfortunately got the next update, but then did not get the multiplayer version of it. GOG.com has since then extended their refund policy to... So GOG.com will be offering an extended refund policy entirely at their own cost for all owners of No Man's Sky who purchase from them. If your purchase is no longer covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee, you're able to contact support for a refund as well. And it sounded like this refund was going to be extending to, hey, if you've bought in this game in the past couple of months or when it first officially released, you can get a full refund on No Man's Sky, since this big update now doesn't have the multiplayer patch for it. There's no official word on when the patch will come out to allow multiplayer on the DRM free version, but it should be sometime in 2019. So what do you guys think about like DRM free editions of video games? And
when they're not getting patches or updates, that is kind of I think that's one of the first items that would actually convince me that DRM maybe isn't the like. I should collect my words a little bit more carefully. I think DRM in the gaming community in general, if it's not a necessity, is viewed as a nuisance or not something that people are particularly interested in. However, if it is the difference between getting a DRM-free game that may not be getting patches or updates on the same schedule and a large enough time frame in which that would be impactful to how someone plays a game, DRM may seem a little bit more appealing to be on the front end of a patch schedule, essentially. Like I'd be willing to deal with some DRM in my games if it means that I'm not waiting an extra 6 months to a year to get patches or new game mechanics and functionality into a game, as long as it's not overbearing.
But is there actually a technical requirement saying that DRM has to be in place for a game to get updates or regular updates?
So in the case of No Man's Sky, the reason that the DRM version is not as quickly patched, they're saying is because Hello Games, is that the guys who made this one?
I think so.
Hello Games, tiny studio. They've got this patch up on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, all the things that they're on, and then just GOG happens to be like the only place to get the DRM free version of the game. So they're just working on getting this patch and figuring out how exactly to do it and keep people from, like, say, hacking their version of No Man's Sky and then jumping into someone else's game and just completely fucking up their worlds.
But, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question here, but DRM shouldn't necessarily have to
DRM?
include
digital rights management.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to include essentially the safeguards or the I'm trying to think of the actual term, but like the anti-cheat engine that the game employs. Like, I guess to me it's just that like DRM doesn't need to have or doesn't have to have a direct correlation to updates in either case, whether you have DRM or not. So I'm just like I've always seen DRM as like a very crappy way to try and make sure people buy your games. And I also see the downside to DRM being that at some point in time, the verification system put into place to make sure that your copy is authentic is going to go down. So it's like the people that are cracking your DRM, who are the criminals or crooks or villains, however you want to label them to begin with, are ultimately the heroes by the end of the lifespan of this game, because they're the ones making sure that this game is still playable. So, yeah, I don't know. DRM's going to be a thing for most games, but I don't know. I honestly don't know if I have any feelings other than DRM is necessary because of publishers and developers, but it's also completely unnecessary, in my opinion.
I can dig it. And I guess my thoughts on it would be, it's not something I really don't mind, but I'm also not of the of your standards, Neil, in going back to a game like 30 years later. I'm always looking to the future.
I mean, I don't think that's the way you can frame it now, because we legitimately had a case a month ago or 2 months ago where Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is no longer playable on Mac because DRM. And it's like, yes, that's only one way to play that game, but because we have an instance where, well, it's playable now, I should note, because of patches and unofficial patches or cracks at that. But we can imagine it in that scenario, but because that's happened, it's not a stone throw away to say, hey, guess what? Sid Meier Sid Meier, is that the Civilization developers?
Yeah, Sid Meier's the Civilization guy.
Crazy situation. Sid Meier goes out of business, and I think they're operated by EA. Civilization is not grossing nearly as much as it used to be in a couple years in the future. Well, the DRM that we used for Civilization 7, now we like that server is no longer up, so you can't play Civ 7 until you go onto Reddit /cracks or whatever and find someone that has a cracked patch for Civ 7. Like, I mean, yes, you would hope that like a bigger company, if they were to actually take down their authentication servers, that they would actually make the patch form afterwards. But if a company goes down or, is destroyed, whatever, who the heck's going to design or build that patch? It's going to be, quote unquote, the crackers, the pirates, the villains, blah blah blah.
I wouldn't call them villains, but
that's what essentially developers and publishers have always.
That's how they're being treated.
Painted them out to be. Like, I don't know.
I like it.
DRM sucks. At the end of the day, like pirating games also sucks, especially for developers.
They don't have to be like mutually exclusive on what is considered undesirable. You can both say pirating is kind of a shitty way for consumers to interact with products, and DRM is a shitty way for producers to release products to consumers.
I like it. I'm also one to say live that if I am looking for something, I will not mind grabbing a pirated version if I cannot get that in a normal way. So
yeah,
Rival Schools. I really want that game. Can't find it anywhere. Am going to eventually just break down and grab a pirated copy because that game's dead.
Which, yeah, I think you're right at that point. If you can't find like a digital re-release or anything of Rival Schools, which is funny because I was actually just talking about this game with Keith yesterday. But if you can't find a copy for it, and if no one will let you give money to buy it, with the exception of spending hundreds of dollars on eBay, which I think is, I don't know,
a little absurd. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's its own form of robbery or theft.
Yep. $160.
And now I'm tempted to figure out what Rival Schools is all about.
It's
a great fighting game.
Yeah. Where you basically have, is it sets of 3? You have 3 characters through from each school, and all of these characters are like high schoolers, so they have club sort of themes going on. Like one character is just straight up a baseball player, so he fights with a baseball bat.
Yeah. That's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and you'll notice that like Sakura, she's a big person in the Rival Schools universe. So there's your crossover to like Street Fighter and stuff. Yeah, Rival Schools. I miss that game.
We should find a time to get together and play that, because I know Keith would be down, and so would John.
Wait, do they have that?
I think Keith might actually have it. I'm not sure though.
Nice.
I've also been.
If so, then yeah.
I've been dying to record some PlayStation 1 footage.
Why?
Yeah,
because PlayStation's awesome. There's so many good games on PlayStation. Oh, but yeah, I was going to propose next week's topic. be one about the again, I'm sure we have talked about this to a minor extent before, but analyzing games and their enjoyment in regards to having crappy gameplay and great story, or crappy story and great gameplay.
I feel like this has been a point of contention between Neil and I since we've been introduced to each other in the gaming world. So this will be a fun one.
Wait, it's been a point of contention for you two?
Has
I
it?
think Neil likes crappy games with good story, and I think I'd rather play a game with a crappy story and good gameplay.
No, I think I'm not opposed to either one. I guess I kind of just want to not necessarily argue the merits of one over the other, but more just bring up our favorite games that are terrible in one way, but are justifiably playable because of the other. And it doesn't have to be related to those two topics too, but just, yeah, okay, maybe next week's topic is specifically what are our guilty pleasures for games that fail so hard in one way but are justified in another.
Okay, yeah, I've got content for that for sure.
And
I can find some content for that, I'm pretty sure.
Part of this
I tend
is
to just abandon terrible games, so
yeah,
you know.
Part of this topic is probably inspired by a game I'm looking to play and figure out how to play in the coming weeks as well. So,
what game?
That we'll be saving that for next week, hopefully.
Oh, fair enough.
But I think that does it for episode 78 of Fancy Ramen. Do you guys have any closing words before we?
Oh, I know what game. Yeah, I know what game.
But you're keeping us in suspense, or?
No, it's Mortal Kombat.
Wait.
Have you ever
Have you ever heard the
I'm a
story of Mortal
Capcom.
Kombat?
I'm a Capcom fan when it comes to like gameplay because the Mortal Kombat fighting system is very clunky and slow, and as people would say, strategic.
Do you think, like, without going too far into it, because I'm sure we'll talk about it to a great extent next week, do you feel that way about the new Mortal Kombats?
So the most recent one that came out, I've got that one. Yeah, no, it's still just as like slow when you compare it to a fluid fighting game such as all of the other ones.
When you compare it to Marvel, of course.
When you compare it to Dive Kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Dive Kick's more fluid than that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree.
Oh, God, that's a crappy story, but great gameplay. There we go. I got plenty of games. All about them fighters.
I would agree now.
I'm Cookie.
I'm Scott, and please tell your friends about the podcast.
I'm Neil, and feel free to write into podcast@fancyramen.com. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Ooh, hopefully Neil's going to wave too. Yay!